Hey, gang, welcome back. Our next miracle that we're talking about is in Matthew 17. It's in Mark and Luke also. Let me see, where was it? Matthew 17, Mark 9, Luke 9 also. Mark gives us a lot more detail on this one, which I think is cool because Mark's usually pretty shorter and doesn't have everything that the other Gospels have, but he spends a lot of time on this um, miracle. And this is where Jesus heals the person with demonic spirit, maybe. The father says he's a lunatic. It sounds like this kid's got a lot of problems going on. Um, Matthew 17, 15, dad says he is a lunatic and sore vexed, for oft times he falleth into the fire and oft into the water. Um, Jesus is asking how long he's been like this. The dad says since he was a kid. Um, and he also talks about how it's just like, I don't know. So it talks more about the what the kid goes through, gnashing his teeth, doing a lot of stuff. And it seems like the dad would be like, I'll do anything for my kid. I would do anything to help my kid. And I think as parents, that's something easy to understand, that if your child was sick or hurt or suffering or injured or whatever, you would do anything for that kid. Anything. And I think when a dad with a child like this hears about Jesus in the area, and Jesus has cast out a bunch of demons, he's healed so many people with all sorts of different physical ailments, that's who I want to go to. And I think, like, if I had a child who was sick, I would want to go to someone who had healed this person before. And I remembered a few years ago, my daughter had a sore neck, and we took her to the doctor. Like, something's off, like something's not right. So the doctor felt like anywhere. So the doctor felt a big lump in her neck, and I don't know. I didn't it seemed normal to me. The doctor's like, we got to get a MRI or CAT scan or whatever, like now. I'm like, oh my gosh. So they did their, I don't remember which was which MRI CAT scan. So they go and do the scan, and they find a lump growing in the back of her throat and neck area. And they rush her to Primary Children's Hospital. Well, not like in a helicopter or something. We drove her, but my wife drove her. Um, got to the hospital, and um, at the hospital, the doctors said, "Yeah, this is something really rare. You could go your whole career without seeing it." We actually see it a lot at Primary Children's Hospital, and I've had this situation several times, because in Primary Children's Hospital, Salt Lake City, Utah, if you're a serious pediatric patient needing serious help, you can you'll come to Primary Children's Hospital from hundreds and hundreds of miles away, from Montana, Nevada, Idaho, all over the place, Wyoming, all over Utah. It's people from Arizona, Colorado. Like, there's a big geographic circle of people who come to Primary Children's. And because so many people go to Primary Children's, the doctors there have seen this weird tumor neck thing a bunch of times. So they're like, um, it's extremely serious. We've seen it a lot. We'll bust this out, and they did. Um, had surgery that day. They saw the X-rays and started prepping for surgery, and they were able to heal my daughter. And obviously, when my doctor found out what was wrong, like, we go to the doctor. Like, I can't fix it. I don't have that knowledge. We go to the doctor. Doctor's like, this is serious. I know what it is, and we need surgery now. So, um, he sends us to the hospital where the professionals are that have seen this a lot and were able to handle it quickly. And I, sorry, for me it was a huge miracle, and a lot of little miracles over those days. And daughter's perfectly fine now. And other than a little sore neck, she didn't feel any different. She wasn't suffering too much, but she was healed. And I think as a father, we went to the doctor. We went to the primary children's hospital. I would have gone anywhere, done anything, whatever I needed to do to have our daughter healed. I think, same with my wife, same with any parent. I feel like they would, if you gotta climb Mount Everest, you gotta find some random plant in the outback of Australia and make a certain ointment for it to heal your kid, like whatever, like let's go. And I think about that when I can have compassion for the dad, and I kind of feel like the mom was like there too. Just the dad maybe brought the kid up, but like these parents, like, oh, we've gone to the disciples, we've tried to get them healed, and now we're coming to who they've referred us to, their primary children, to be healed. And I just picture the parents like making that journey to Jesus, to be with Jesus. First of all, going to the disciples, the apostles, to see Jesus, to be healed. And when that didn't work, they went to Jesus. And I love it. Not that the child was sick, but the path. And I think any parent would take that same path. I kind of like the wording in Matthew. Mark gives us more detail, which I love. I kind of like how Matthew words some things here. So, I like Matthew 17:16. I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. So he's like, I took him to, I don't know which disciples, but I took him to the disciples, and they couldn't cure him. Which is funny because the apostles, I think disciples would be anyone who follows Jesus Christ. I think the apostles, in my head, are like the main 12 people following Jesus. I feel like I'm a disciple, not an apostle. I think these guys were apostles and disciples. Anyway, so they weren't able to cure him. And Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither unto me. Bring him hither to me. Seems like kind of a harsh response. Like, oh gosh, whoops. And there's not a lot of harsh responses in the Bible from Jesus. So when there is a harsh response, I pay attention more. So many times, so many miracles we've talked about. How is this person healed? It is by their faith. It is by the faith of their family and friends. It is by faith. So many times Jesus says, it is the faith, doubt not, fear not, have faith. We hear that so many times, over and over and over, that miracles can happen if we don't have faith. Here it sounds like the apostles, the disciples weren't able to heal this child because of their lack of faith. So the first thing Jesus said, "O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you?" So it continues on. But the first thing he says is the faith. And it always, that's the core thing. Jesus isn't making it complicated. This is what we've done, like 20 something miracles. It's always about faith. It's not complicated. The miracle happens all sorts of different ways because of faith. It's that faith that makes it happen. And when they when Jesus says, "Oh, faithless and perverse generation," it almost sounds like maybe he's not talking. Sorry, he's not talking about the boy. He's not talking about the father. He's probably not talking about the disciples. Sounds like the generation. Like he's talking about like the world. But I don't know. Maybe he is talking about the disciples, or he's talking about, because it kind of sounds like the disciples because they weren't able to heal him. But we'll get back to that. So after Jesus says that, Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. So the devil was cast out, and any other physical ailments were healed right then. And I think the next few verses is why it's in the scriptures. Jesus has cast out a bunch of devils. This isn't new. This isn't new to us anymore. We're in Matthew 17. The disciples have been healing people since Matthew 10. I don't know how the time frame on that, but 7 chapters of Matthew, the disciples have been healing people on their own, and they were not able to heal this one. Jesus said unto them, so the disciples, why couldn't we cast them out? Like, we've been healing people, and now for something's different with this kid, we can't heal him, and you could. Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. Yeah, we hear that same message every time, every miracle, every lesson. Faith, belief. For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. A mustard seed is tiny. Like, I have one taped in my... See that little bump there? Sorry, I wonder if I can get this up close. Sorry, now I'm just messing around. See that little guy there? That's a mustard seed that I tape in my scriptures as a reminder, which is the tiniest little fleck. Like, it's barely noticeable. I have it taped in my Bible, and it doesn't even... a few pages away, you can kind of tell it's there, but it's tiny. And I think the faith so small, you can move mountains. You shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove. If you have like that tiny little faith, you can say to a mountain, move. I was like, oh my gosh, I also have no faith. Because that is crazy. And Jesus is saying, just having such a little bit of faith changes everything. And Mark and Luke have very similar things about faith and believing, but I like the mustard seed reference that I think is only in Matthew, so I like that. Jesus continues, howbeit this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. So this is the lesson. This is where I feel these two verses, 20, 21, I think that's why we made the cut with this miracle, is because of those two. Howbeit this kind, so he's talking about this kind of need, this kind of desire, this is bigger. So it sounds like there's different stages of healing, maybe there's different stages of belief and faith, and maybe the disciples have this much faith or belief so they can move these little mountains, and this was a little bit more. And they needed to do a little bit more. Howbeit this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. Prayer and fasting. How is prayer and fasting going to increase our spiritual strength, our spiritual ability to be the conduit for these miracles to be performed in us? I don't know. I know the prayer obviously keeps us more in line with our Heavenly Father, with Jesus, what they would have us do. Fasting, I know we're depriving ourselves, and with that deprivation, we are seeking more help. We're being more humble, and we're seeking Jesus. But I love that prayer and fasting are big, and these verses really make me think. Fasting is not it's not my favorite thing at all. And sometimes I'm not so good with prayer. I try to be better with prayer. It's a lot easier to be better with prayer, but fasting for me is harder. But like, it seems like once there's a certain level of trial in life that we need heavenly help from, we need some prayer and fasting. We need to do a little more on our part than we were doing before. But I really like that. The prayer and fasting. We need to be doing the prayer and fasting. And man, I just lost my little thing. I also like how Mark, I know he said Mark explains way more. In that same, how Mark sees the world, Jesus saith unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And then I like what the Father says, Lord, I believe. Help thou my unbelief. And I love that because I feel like that'd probably be a lot of our responses, right? Like a lot of us would say the same thing. I believe. Okay. Maybe not enough. Maybe I don't believe enough. Maybe I wasn't praying while I wasn't fasting. My belief isn't where it should be. Help my unbelief. Help me get there. I believe here. Help me get to here. What do I need to do to believe more? Again, they talk about the fasting and the prayer is what the disciples needed to do to cast out the spirit. And I like the progression. It's not totally like my experience with my daughter. We went to the doctor. The doctor knew what was wrong, but didn't have the ability to fix it. So we went to the specialists that were able to fix it. This dad took his kid to the specialist that should be able to fix this. They've been performing miracles on their own. There's a reason, like, you should be going to the disciples. They can do miracles. This one they couldn't. They also escalated up. In the scriptures, they went to Jesus. We went to Primary Children's. And I know it's not exactly the same. Fasting and prayer with my daughter definitely hit hard and fast. I don't think we had time. We didn't have time to fast that day. But the prayers, the prayers were there for sure. And the prayers were answered through not the disciples, like the Bible, but the people at the hospital that I believe that Jesus helped prepare and get to a place where they could heal my daughter. And they were the conduit to answer my prayers. We didn't need a mountain moved. We need an infection moved. And it was miraculous, but not that it just vanished or something weird. Like, it was miraculous in that we were half hour away from the smartest people within hundreds and hundreds of miles that knew exactly what this was and how to fix it. And she was healed because of this, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for the people that God puts in our lives to heal us and to help us. And again, believe. Grain of mustard seed, that little guy, that little fleck, that little piece of dust that was on your floor, you probably wouldn't notice. Have that much faith, and like the dad in the story, I believe. If you're watching this, you believe. Of course you believe. But maybe that belief could be stronger. Maybe that prayer and fasting will help us elevate that to the next level where we can see bigger miracles in our lives. Thanks.